1, 2, 3, 4.
Get your booty on the floor. Gonna get up, get down.
Oh, God. All right, guys, we are back with part 2 of this video series, walking you through the Audio-Tech Fisher DSP software.
Who's we?
Me and Doug.
Oh, yeah.
Doug Dobson of MSC America. Nick Apicella here. So what we're doing in this video, it's going to kind of relate to the last one. We are going to be working inside of the input and output tab. This time we're going to focus on a single feature, which is the input EQ. So to get to the input EQ, you are again, you're going to go inside of the input and output tab, which is what we're looking at. And you're going to see top right, a little icon with an EQ slider. You're going to click that. But before we get into that, I just want to show you here, we do have a pseudo OEM system set up here on the bench that we are going to measure to give you, a little idea of how to use this to your advantage. So we just set up like a little two-way sound system if you were going, after the DSP. And before the DSP, we have front left high, front left low, and front right low. This is pretty much what your most basic OEM systems will have, maybe with some EQ or bass roll off, maybe even an all-pass filter if you have, like a Toyota or a GM. So let's get into it. Top right, click the little EQ slider icon. As you can see, I already measured something here. But on the left side, you have your inputs. You cannot do input EQ on your digital inputs. For better or worse, I don't see any reason why you would need that. So you can only do analog and your HEC cards. So in order to get this input signal analyzer to measure your signal, you are going to want to drag and drop whatever input you want to measure into the signal analyzer and just click start. Before you click start, you're going to want to be playing your mono pink noise. Mono is very important here because if you use stereo or aka uncorrelated pink noise, you're not going to be able to measure any phase or timing discrepancies that might be in your signal when you're summing. So let's start this. It's going to run through analyzing the signal, and you just got to wait a little bit just for it to run through every frequency. And yeah. All right, so we can stop the measurement now. This is the signal we have on the front left high signal that we grabbed from this quote-unquote car. And it's dead flat with a crossover with a high-pass filter at about 500 hertz. So we can, we know this doesn't really need any change. Let's go ahead and measure our front left low signal. All right, and as you can see, this one is mostly flat, up to, down low, all the way up to about 500 hertz. So this is a perfect example to show you what might need to be done in order to sum. So let's see what happens when we, measure both of them at the same time. Again, you just drag and drop. You can measure up to 4 different inputs at a time. You can even change the percentages of any of them. You can even flip the polarity of some. So since we set up this, pseudo OEM system, we already know what the crossover points are. We're using 500 hertz, 12 dB slopes. And we know when we sum 12 dB slopes, they are going to cause a cancellation because each order of filtering introduces a 45-degree shift of phase. So when we combine these two 12 dB slopes, they're going to be 180 degrees out of phase. So we should be seeing a dip at 500 hertz here when we measure these together. Let's see. Oh, what do you know?
So weird.
That dip is there. So what do we do when we have cancellation at the crossover? We can go ahead and invert the polarity and measure again and see what happens.
Remember, the whole goal is to get a flat signal that's usable for each channel.
And just like that, we have a seemingly flat signal. It looks like the lower frequency signal is a little bit lower in amplitude. And you know what? If we wanted to, go ahead and fix that, we can go ahead. Just click on whatever input you want to adjust and we could go into our input EQ down here. And this looks like it's just a very shallow roll off, like a low shelf filter. So we can just apply, let's say, a low shelf of maybe 150 hertz, it looks like might work. And try this. Let's see, we're down. Yeah, let's bring it up to 5. And let's measure again and see what happens. All right, as you can see, applying this shelf filter just to the one channel may have caused some phase shift and is causing a little bit of cancellation down low and in the crossover region. It's a lot better than it was before, but it's not perfect. A good remedy for this is to just apply that same filter to both channels. So we're gonna go ahead, I already said it before, we're gonna apply that. We were at +5, 150. Q of 4. Whoop. Hold on. All right, so we're gonna apply that same filter to both channels and run this again. All right, as you can see, that's much better. The response is not perfectly flat, but it's definitely workable. There's no cancellation, there's no, the crossovers in phase. A good thing to note here, if you take a close look, you'll see that this is updating live. After the first initial pass, if you let the analyzer run, it will update frequency by frequency live right in front of you, and you can see exactly what's going on as you're making changes. So these are pretty much good to go. Now let's see what happens when we apply, let's say, all right, so now we are going to go ahead and measure the front right high signal that we set up. As you can see, this front right high signal is mostly flat, except for a little bit of a boost in the 4K area. We set that up on our pseudo OEM system here, and we're just going to show you, how you can alleviate these issues and fix the signal to get a predictable flat signal. One thing to note here, while we are here with this current version that we are on, which is 4.60B, I'm gonna stop this for a second and show you this issue. To show you this little bug, we're on input A right now. So input A, we are selected on it on the inputs. We also have it in the analyzer, and you can see the input EQ down here. Ignore this measurement up here, that was something else. If we want to go ahead and measure a different input, there is a bug for the input EQ. Let me show you what that is. So if we get rid of that input from the analyzer and we click, drag and drop input B, pay attention, before I let this go, pay attention to the settings on the input EQ. Now you know that we did not do anything on input B yet. Pay attention when I drop this. Nothing in the input EQ changed. You will see that input B is in the analyzer and input B shows that it's highlighted up here. But the settings in the input EQ are still from the previous input A. If you want to make adjustments to input B in the current version of this software, we already sent a video of this bug to Audio Tech Fisher, and they are usually pretty quick about fixing this. So honestly, by the time this comes out, this will probably be resolved, but just a heads up. If you want to EQ this input, you just have to go back and click it. That's it. After you drag and drop that input to the analyzer, you just have to go back and click it. That's all you have to do, and it'll bring up the actual input settings from that input. So that being said, let's move on and measure input B, which is actually, you know what, I'm not even gonna measure it. We already measured it. That's what this one is. It's pretty much the same as input A, except you will see that there's a little bit of a peak at 4K. So, how do we do that? We can, fix that if we go to the input EQ, click on a band, and have the parametric EQ here. If you click this, a drop-down menu appears. You can select high shelf, parametric, or all pass. For this situation, we're going to use a parametric EQ. We're going to do about 4,000 hertz. What is that, about 3 or so dB? And let's go to 4 dB. And with a Q that looks kind of wide, let's say a Q of 2. And you can match your filter exactly to the opposite of what you got going on up here. You can eyeball it, which is pretty nice. So let's go ahead and measure this again. All right, as you can see, that took care of the boost that was in the signal, and we have a flat usable response. So same thing as before. If we want to sum these and we know we have to flip polarity on one of these, we already flipped polarity on A, we're gonna do the same thing here. And we already know, you know what, let's measure these. Whoop, that's left, sorry. Let's measure these and see what we get. You can see we still have the same little dip here. The mid-range signal is just a little hotter than the mid-bass signal. So again, to alleviate that, just apply, for this situation, maybe just a low pass. Maybe +5 with a Q of 4. And we're also going to do it to the front right high signal. Q of 4. So let's measure this one more time. All right, we are pretty close. We could just boost this up a little bit more if we want. But, let's say this is a perfectly flat signal and this is exactly the setup that we wanted to use for a given output. So this is, front left or front right high and front right low. Now that would be applicable to all of our right output channels and our subwoofer channel. So let's say we wanted to put this to output D, where we have, a midwoofer and a two-way setup. Over here, you'll see transfer routing to and a drop-down menu. If you click this drop-down menu and click channel D and click transfer routing to, if you go back to the input and output menu, you will see that this difference, before we didn't have this, polarity flipped on this one. You will see that those settings that we changed in there were all transferred to this output. Let's just give you another, hypothetical situation. Let's say we wanted to mix that one with this one and this one, and we wanted to transfer it to output F, and this one, is also inverted, yada yada yada. Maybe do 10% on this one and 40 on this one.
That ought to work really well.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And we click transfer routing to, we go back, and there we go. Same as before. All of the input EQ that you applied in these is applied to this output when you click transfer routing to.
And the best part means that you can modify any of those input signals differently for each of the output signals. So you don't need to sum all the time. If you were doing a three-way set output and the response is fine for a certain channel, it can just go straight to that output channel. And then you can modify the signal where it's deficient for the channels where you need to do that.
So the unfortunate situation of that is I don't think you will really know that the input EQ is really different in here. You don't really know, like there's no way to tell if the input EQ is different in here, right? For this channel versus this channel. Like let's say this one has a different input EQ setting than this one.
If you could do something to cut all the high end off in one channel.
Yeah, but how do we know that that setting is there after we set it?
Listen to it. Watch it.
I guess you just have to go back to, like I'm just saying, is there any way you can go in here and like load up?
No, you can't. You can't reference it.
Okay, that should be maybe something we should talk to them about too. A way to go back to see what is applied to what channel. we're coming up with new features on the spot.
I bet they like it.
Yeah. Let's see if they, let's see how quick they are to respond to that one. If they'll even think that's a good idea, or if that's even possible in this. I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. It
Well,
might be
if you've
tricky.
already modified the
Actually,
signal
it
and
might
you
be
saved
tricky.
it,
Yeah,
and it's there.
it's there somewhere. All right. I
The other
guess
thing- Oh, we wanted to
store. Frequency response. Okay. So maybe now we can do an all-pass filter. All right, guys, we are going to show you how you can use this input signal analyzer to see if you have all-pass filters or even signal delay in the signal that you're working with. So as you saw before, we had flat left and flat right, but phase doesn't show itself on the RTA unless you're playing the two sides. So what we're going to do, we actually applied an all-pass filter to this front right low signal, and it's at 200 hertz with a second order all-pass filter. And if we measure it, we are not going to be able to tell. It's going to measure a normal frequency response, and everything is going to look a-okay. As you can see, pretty normal response, low end roll off that we did apply in the software. But now the left side has the same filters applied except no all-pass filter. So let's sum these together and run this, and you will see exactly how you can use this to identify any changes in phase or time in your signal. All right, as you can see, we have a cancellation centered at 200 hertz. This is a pretty wide all-pass filter, so we got a lot of cancellation all over, but as you can see, it is centered at 200 hertz. So if we counteract that in here, if we go to let's say, how do we know it's on our right one? Well, if we take that and apply an all-pass filter to our right signal, it's just going to screw it up even more. It's going to still look totally messed up, but one way we can counteract this is apply one on our left side that matches. So we're at 200 hertz, second order. Now let's run this again and see what happens. Q is the same. Oh, Q is 2 actually. So we also have a Q of 2 on this other all-pass filter. So let's see what happens. And as you can see, we are pretty much, it's not perfect, but if there is an all-pass filter in your signal, the best thing you can really do is to match it on the other side and work with it, or
Show them what would happen if we applied it to the other channel.
this is on the other channel. We applied this one on the
apply it to the channel that it's already on.
so if we apply it to the same channel that it's already on, let's bypass this one.
When you're guessing and trying to learn.
Yeah, when you're trying to guess, it's pretty much still going to look screwed up. Let's see. All right, as you can see, still a totally messed up response. So if this is what you ran into, and what you would do is just bypass this one, go to your other one, and re-enable it. Run it again, and if that fixes the problem and goes back to normal, that's how you know what side it's applied to. Yeah, so as you can see, back to normal, and pretty simple.